The internet has been buzzing once again, and this time it's about Jasmin Brown and Cam Newton's relationship making headlines. What started as personal struggles has now turned into a very public story, unfolding across social media posts, podcasts, and non-stop online discussions, with the contrast between the polished image seen on the outside and the complicated reality behind the scenes being hard to ignore. Recently, on his Funky Friday podcast, Cam Newton explained that marriage was never really his ultimate goal, describing his outlook as building a... The thing about Cam Newton is that he has often shared some very traditional views on women, and this has become a recurring talking point whenever his public image comes up, with many critics noting that his perspective sometimes feels rooted in an old-school mindset that not everyone agrees with. Yet Cam continues to lean on these ideas as part of his personal identity, especially on his own podcast, where he once explained that his definition of a so-called boss woman wasn't centered on career achievements or financial independence, but rather on qualities tied to family and household roles. And while some listeners understood his point of view, others argued that it sounded outdated, sparking family without necessarily following the traditional path of a legal contract. And while some understood his perspective, others found it controversial, especially after his separation from Kia, with whom he shares 4 children, because instead of simply co-parenting privately, their differences ended up in court through paternity and custody filings, followed by reports
Children.
How many?
8.
and unapologetic as she encouraged women to value themselves and not take on the entire burden in a relationship, reminding her audience that they shouldn't be the ones cooking, cleaning, paying bills, and providing emotional support while receiving very little effort in return. And through her content, she quickly became a voice for many women who were tired of feeling overlooked or carrying more than their fair share in partnerships, with her strong stance resonating widely and shaping her image as someone who spoke up for self-respect and balance in relationships.
And I think a lot of times when you get that aesthetic of like, I'm a boss bitch, like I'm a this, I'm a that, no, baby, like, but you can't cook.
I thought I didn't do my research. I thought it was 4, but 8. Okay.
No, baby.
Cool.
It's
By how
8.
many women?
3.
Then in a sit-down with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, he admitted,
And this is the kicker.
Because instead of staying silent, Jasmin chose to speak directly from the heart, showing a vulnerable side that resonated with many. And that openness is exactly why the internet reacted so strongly, as people began connecting her story to their own experiences, using it as a reminder that vulnerability can be powerful and healing, ultimately reminding us that even public figures who seem to have perfect lives face real struggles just like everyone else. And whether this becomes a turning point for them or simply another difficult chapter, the world will definitely be paying attention to what happens next, with conversations about love, trust, and family continuing.
I want more. Now,
By multiple women? What's the intent
I
of
just
saying
want God
about
to
your
bring
wife?
her. I just want God to bring her.
Oh, okay. And you have, so you just...
Because my point is this. My desire to get married is lower than my fear of divorce. So, as you had said, Dr. Brian, you said it, I didn't say it, I will agree. I'm just taking my time.
Shared an emotional Instagram post that caught everyone's attention as she opened up about her fears and challenges in raising a son, given her own past experiences. Her heartfelt admission sparked concern, while also starting wider conversations about relationships, expectations, and the struggles couples face, especially since she is currently expecting her second child with Cam, which made her words even more powerful and personal. Meanwhile, Cam has always been known for speaking openly about family and relationships, sometimes sparking debate for his views on commitment, and together, this moment adds a new chapter to their ongoing story, that fans are watching closely to dominate timelines everywhere.
As long as I've been with Jazz, Jazz has not been the only person that I've had sex with.
What does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
You know, like packing his bag, unpacking his bag.
Damn! Stop treating people like the hell.
On his Funky Friday podcast, Cam Newton openly shared his perspective, explaining that marriage has never really been his ultimate goal. And while that view may surprise some, it reflects his personal outlook on relationships and commitment.
As long as I've been with Jazz, Jazz has not been the only person that I've had sex with.
Cam Newton has often made headlines for his outspoken views on women and relationships. And one of the most talked about moments came when he shared his belief that a woman should know how to cook, be supportive, and allow a man to lead. A statement of a dispute over a luxury car he had previously gifted her. And while those details quickly grabbed public attention, many observers felt the situation was less about material possessions and more about control and unresolved disagreements, ultimately leaving fans with questions about how Cam's image as a devoted father and family man aligns with some of his past actions. And that contrast between words and behavior is what has kept this story in the spotlight, sparking conversations about modern relationships, responsibility, and the challenges that even high-profile families face behind closed doors.
Jazz allows me to speak to her, and we are able to have banter. And I hate that I embarrassed her, because no woman ever wants to admit that openly. But what? I'm sorry, I want to make sure. That their person has not always been with them.
Wider debates online about modern gender roles, relationships, and what true partnership looks like in today's world.
Right? I have beautiful
What turned their relationship into such a major talking point online.
A woman for me is handling your own, but knowing how to cater to a man's needs.
Jasmin Brown's message once came across loud, confident, and
You don't know when to be quiet. You don't know how to allow a man to lead.
that's why Jasmin Brown's current situation has drawn so much attention that quickly stirred up major debate across the internet, with many critics calling his perspective outdated and dismissive of women's independence. Yet despite the backlash, Cam has never really walked back his words, instead standing firmly by them, which only fueled the conversation further. The irony that many people pointed out is that these strong opinions were coming from someone whose own personal life has often been complicated, something even a licensed psychologist once mentioned on his show, highlighting that Cam tends to pick and choose when to be present and responsible, leading some to question how he could position himself as an authority on building families while navigating his own challenges. And as this debate was unfolding, Jasmin Brown's involvement added another unexpected twist, because she had built her career and social media presence as a comedian who often poked fun at women who compromised too much for undeserving partners, branding herself as someone who valued self-respect and independence, which made her decision to stand by Cam all the more surprising to fans who remembered her earlier content. And that contrast is because for many observers, it feels less like a small contradiction and more like a complete role reversal, leading some to wonder if she has now stepped into the very position she once spoke out against in her comedy sketches. And the irony of it all hasn't gone unnoticed since her relationship with Cam Newton began, as interviews showed her shifting from being a strong critic of women overextending themselves in relationships to openly celebrating her new role as a highly devoted partner, describing how she takes pride in anticipating his needs, organizing his travel, and even finding joy in small acts of care, like helping him relax after long days. A change that sparked countless conversations online about how love and relationships can sometimes reshape even the strongest personal philosophies.
You're being very action-based. You're not taking your time. You're being very action-based.
I'm taking my time.
You're being very action-based. You have 8 kids with 3 different women.
Yes.
You are creating, procreating, and multiplying. That is not taking your time. You're being very selectively active, okay?
The way Jasmin Brown's story has unfolded has left many people genuinely surprised, because for longtime followers, it felt like watching someone step into an entirely different reality, shifting from a confident boss persona who once demanded balance in relationships to someone who openly expressed joy in serving her partner. And that dramatic change sparked intense debate online, with critics calling it a contradiction and labeling it as hypocrisy, while others saw it as a personal transformation brought on by love. The internet reaction was fast and unforgiving, with some users pointing out the contrast between her earlier message of self-respect and her more recent choices, while a few sympathetic voices suggested that even the strongest critics of unhealthy dynamics can find themselves caught up in them. Still, the majority opinion remained skeptical, arguing that Jasmin chose to ignore a very visible pattern in Cam Newton's past, and in turn found herself in a difficult position. And when she posted her emotional Instagram message, many didn't just see it as a relationship update, but rather as a vulnerable moment of honesty that read less like criticism of Cam and more like a reflection of her own struggles, almost as if she was realizing in real time that she had stepped into the very role she once warned others against.
But my love is my superpower, and I used to hate that about myself, but now it's like I'm just embracing it. Like, that's who I am. Like, if I love you, I can heal you. But
It's your joy.
It is my joy. You know, I love to see him eating the meal that I cooked. I love seeing him sleep easy. Like, every night, like clockwork, I scratch this man's back to sleep. And I know when he's asleep because I can tell when his breathing changes. And some people might think that's psychotic, but that's like, I just know that's when I'm like, oh, I can stop now. But I find joy in being your rest. And it shouldn't be conditional.
What's most striking is that while some believe Jasmin may eventually decide to walk away, the reality is far less certain, because despite the criticism and the challenges playing out in public, she has chosen to stay by Cam's side, even as they prepare to welcome another child together, which will be his 9th overall. And that choice has sparked debate online, with people questioning whether she is staying to prove a point, maintain an image, or simply hold on to the relationship despite the difficulties. But one thing is clear: this is unlikely to be the last emotional moment she shares publicly, as the dynamic between them continues to unfold. And for many observers, the situation serves as a reminder that she once warned others about red flags, yet still found herself caught up in a very similar pattern, leaving the impression that Jasmin's recent Instagram post was less about criticizing Cam Newton and more about acknowledging her own difficult reality, while highlighting that Cam himself has remained largely consistent in who he is and how he approaches relationships.